The sky above Saravel glowed with two pale suns, casting long golden shadows over the wide plains. The Ovrian, a gentle and slender species with translucent skin and fragile bones, had built their colony here centuries ago. Their cities were beautiful, with curved towers of crystal and gardens that bloomed in endless colors. For a long time, Saravel had been a safe home, but safety never lasted forever in the galaxy. Now the Grask Empire had arrived. The Grask were brutal raiders, their ships sharp-edged and black, their armies merciless. They had crushed dozens of smaller civilizations, enslaving those who survived. When their war fleets appeared in Saravel's skies, the Ovrian knew they could not resist for long. Their defenses were weak, their weapons designed for ceremony more than war. The Ovrians had one hope: the Galactic Council. The Council claimed to protect weaker civilizations, keeping order in a galaxy filled with predators. The Ovrians had sent their plea across the stars, a message filled with desperation. "This is Saravel colony of the Ovrian people. We are under attack. We request immediate assistance. Please, if you hear this, we beg for reinforcements." The message repeated, carrying through subspace, bouncing across relays. Days passed, then weeks. The Ovrian waited, looking to the skies with anxious eyes, hoping for the sleek silver ships of the Council to appear. But the skies remained empty, except for the dark shadows of the Grask fleet. The Council's silence inside the crystal command hall of Saravel's capital. The Ovrian leaders gathered. Their long robes shimmered in the light, but their faces were full of sorrow. "Still no answer?" asked Arian, a scholar who had become a reluctant war leader. His voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. "No," replied Lyra, the colony's governor. "The Council has remained silent. Either they cannot hear us, or they do not care." The words cut through the chamber. For the Ovrian, who trusted in diplomacy and order, the thought of being abandoned was unbearable. "Without help," Arian whispered, "we cannot hold Saravel. The Grask will enslave us, as they did the Vaynar, the Calith, and so many others." Silence fell. Their people were peaceful. They had no great armies. Even their soldiers were trained more for defense than for war. But hope had not yet died. The Ovrian sent the message again and again, their signal scattering across the galaxy. Somewhere, someone must hear, someone must come. The signal reaches. Earth far from Saravel, on a blue and green world called Earth, the signal was heard. Humanity had only recently stepped into the wider galaxy. Their technology was considered crude compared to the great powers of the Council. Their ships were not sleek or elegant, but functional, built with thick armor and simple designs. But humans were curious. They listened to the stars. When Saravel's cry for help reached a human outpost, it was forwarded to the United Terran Fleet. In a meeting room aboard the heavy cruiser Resolute, Captain Adrian Holt studied the message. The Ovrian voice was soft, desperate, and full of fear. "They're begging for help," said his first officer, Commander Reyes. Holt frowned. "Where is the Council? This should be their responsibility." "Maybe they don't care," Reyes said. "Or maybe they don't think the Ovrians are worth saving." Holt looked around the table at his officers. "What about us? We're not part of their council. We don't have to answer." But no one spoke. Humanity was still new to the galaxy, but already they had learned one thing: most species feared them. Not because of their technology, but because of their reputation. Humans came from a world others called a death world, filled with predators, diseases, storms, and dangers that would kill most alien species in days. To survive, humanity had become strong, stubborn, and relentless. At last Holt gave the order: "Set course for Saravel. If no one else will help them, we will." The arrival on Saravel, the days grew darker. Grask raiders attacked small settlements, stealing supplies and capturing colonists. Each day the Ovrians lost more ground. Then one morning, alarms rang across the colony. Ships had appeared in the skies. The Ovrian rushed outside, hearts pounding. "Is it the Council?" Arian whispered, looking up. But what they saw was not the sleek silver of council fleets. Instead, heavy shapes descended through the clouds, ships built of steel and fire, their hulls scarred and dented, carrying the marks of many battles. The Ovrians gasped in shock. These ships looked crude, almost primitive compared to council designs. They were painted in dull colors, some with strange symbols on their sides. "Who are they?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. These are not council ships." The vessel slowed, hovering over the colony before descending to land. The ground shook as massive landing ramps lowered. Figures stepped out. They were tall, broad-shouldered, wearing strange armor. Their skin was solid, not translucent like Ovrians, and their eyes burned with a strange light. They moved with confidence, as if they belonged on any battlefield. The Ovrians stared in disbelief. These were not the refined diplomats they had expected. These were humans. First meeting Governor Lyra stepped forward, her hands shaking as she tried to show proper diplomacy. I am Governor Lyra of the Ovrian colony," she said in her soft voice. "You have answered our call?" Captain Holt removed his helmet. His face was weathered with lines from sun and wind. He gave a short nod. "We heard your signal," he said. "We're from Earth. We're here to help." The words were simple, but the tone was firm. The Ovrian felt uneasy. These humans did not act like the careful, polite diplomats of the council. They were direct, almost blunt. Arian leaned toward Lyra. Are these truly the ones who will defend us?" Before Lyra could answer, alarms blared again. A Grask raiding party had entered the colony's outskirts. The Ovrians panicked. Their defenses were weak. They expected the humans to hesitate, to make plans, to retreat and wait. Instead, Holt and his soldiers turned immediately toward the sound of danger. "Form up," Holt barked. The humans moved quickly, weapons in hand, spreading out like hunters. Their faces showed no fear. If anything, some even looked eager. The Ovrians could only watch as the humans rushed forward into the fight. The skirmish, the Aswisai, Grask raiders were brutal, armored in spiked suits wielding heavy weapons. They marched through the outskirts, setting fire to buildings. But then the humans struck. With sharp precision, they moved through the streets, firing strange weapons that spat fire and thunder. The Grask were caught off guard. Within minutes, several of them were down. A human soldier tackled a Grask twice his size, wrestling him to the ground with raw strength. Another human dragged wounded civilians to safety while still firing at the enemy. To the Ovrians, the scene was shocking. They were used to war being slow, cautious, and formal. But the humans fought like storms, loud, fast, and unstoppable. In less than 20 minutes, the raiding party was destroyed. Not a single human had fallen. When Holt returned, his armor was scratched and burned, but his expression calm. "It's clear," he said simply. "You're safe for now." The Ovrians stared at him in silence. Safe? How could such a word be spoken so easily after such violence? New doubts. That night, the Ovrians gathered again. They had asked for help, and help had come. But this was not what they had expected. "These humans, they are dangerous," one elder said. "Did you see how they fought? Without hesitation, without mercy?" "They are terrifying," another whispered. Arian looked out at the camp where the humans were repairing their gear. Some of them laughed loudly, sharing food, acting as if the battle had been nothing. They were rough, unpredictable, even reckless. But they had saved Saravel's people. Governor Lyra spoke softly. "We asked for help. What we received may not be what we imagined, but perhaps it is what we need." The others fell silent, uncertain. For the first time, the Ovrians wondered if their survival would come not from the safety of the Council, but from the strength of Deathworlders. The twin suns of Saravel rose higher, their light spilling over the colony's wide plains. For the Ovrians, this should have been another quiet morning filled with songbirds and the scent of flowering trees. But now every dawn felt heavy with dread. The Grask Empire lurked in orbit, ready to strike at any moment. And on the ground, walking boldly through the crystal streets of the colony, were the newcomers, the humans, The Ovrion had asked for help, and help had come. Yet the sight of these strangers filled them with unease. Strange visitors. The Ovrion had always thought of strength in terms of wisdom, patience, and diplomacy. But the humans seemed to carry a different kind of strength, one that was raw and direct. Their bodies were heavier, their skin opaque instead of shimmering. Their eyes were sharp and restless, scanning every corner as if danger could leap from the shadows at any time. They laughed loudly, spoke bluntly, and carried themselves with a confidence that unsettled the delicate Ovrian people. Arian, the scholar-turned-war leader, could not help but whisper to Governor Lyra as they watched the humans set up their camp. "They look like predators," he said quietly. "Every movement is full of purpose. And their weapons, did you see them? They are brutal things. No artistry, only destruction." Lyra's translucent skin glowed faintly in the morning light. "Yet they fought for us yesterday," she reminded him. "Without them, that grass raid would have ended with more of our people taken." Arian hesitated. "Yes, but at what cost? Did you see the look in their eyes as they fought? As if they enjoyed it." Neither of them had the answer. Human camp, the humans wasted no time. Their landing site had become a busy camp filled with strange machines. Their armored vehicles hummed with power and soldiers moved in squads, setting up defenses. Captain Adrian Holt walked among his people, speaking with calm authority. His first officer, Commander Reyes, was already planning supply runs. The soldiers cleaned their weapons, repaired armor, and even shared jokes while working. The Ovrion, watching from a distance, were both confused and fascinated. "How can they laugh after what they faced yesterday?" asked one young Ovrian. "We are still trembling, yet they seem unbothered." "It is because they do not fear the Grask," another elder answered softly, "and that may be more dangerous than the Grask themselves." But despite their doubts, curiosity grew. Small groups of Ovrians approached the camp, watching the humans closer. One soldier, a broad-shouldered woman named Harper, noticed their stares. She smiled, crouched down to their level, and offered them a small ration bar. "Food," she said simply. The Ovrians hesitated. The bar was brown and plain-looking, not at all like their colorful fruit and nectar meals. But one brave child reached forward and took it. When he bit into it, his eyes widened in surprise. "It is strong," he said. "Heavy, not sweet, but filling." The humans laughed gently, not at him, but with him. Harper ruffled the child's hair. It was the first small bridge between the two species. Alien eyes later that day, Governor Lyra invited Captain Holt and a few of his officers into the Crystal Hall. The humans entered, their boots echoing on the smooth floor. The Ovrion studied them carefully. Holt bowed slightly, not with elegance but with sincerity. "We thank you for receiving us. We will do all we can to defend your colony." Lyra spoke carefully, her voice carrying the weight of her people. "We are grateful, but we must understand why. You are not members of the Council. You gain nothing from helping us." Holt's eyes met hers. They were steady but tired, as if they had seen many wars. "Because you asked," he said simply. "And because if we were in your place, we would want someone to stand with us." His words surprised the Ovrians. No complex promises, no delicate diplomacy, only honesty. Arian leaned forward, curiosity overcoming fear. "Your people, you come from a world unlike any other, do you not? We have heard whispers. A world where even the ground itself is dangerous?" Holt gave a faint smile. "Earth, yes, it's not a gentle place, but it made us who we are. It taught us to fight to survive. That's why we don't fear the Grask. We've faced worse." The Ovrians exchanged uneasy looks. What could be worse than the Grask? An unexpected attack, their discussion was interrupted by alarms. Lights flashed across the hall and voices called out in panic. "A Grask strike team has landed at the eastern farms." Lyra gasped. "Not again." Before she could issue orders, Holt was already moving. "Show us the way," he commanded. The humans rushed out, weapons ready. The Ovrion followed at a distance, fear heavy in their hearts. When they reached the farmlands, smoke filled the air. Grask soldiers marched through the fields, setting fire to crops, dragging Ovrian workers away. The Ovrians froze, uncertain. Their instincts told them to hide, to wait for the attack to pass. That was how they had survived in the past, but the humans were different. Squads, spread out. "Hit them from the flanks," Holt shouted. The humans moved with speed and precision. Explosions rang out as they set off small charges, creating smoke screens. The Grask roared in confusion. Then the humans struck. They attacked not like soldiers following rigid drills, but like hunters. They used the land itself, rolling through tall grass, hiding behind burning farm walls, striking from unexpected angles. One human leaped from a rooftop onto a grask, dragging him down with sheer strength. Another fired carefully between the gaps in grask armor, every shot finding its mark. The Ovrians watched in awe. This was no ordinary battle. It was chaos, but controlled chaos, guided by instincts honed on a world of predators. Within minutes, the Grask strike team was defeated. The aftermath, when the smoke cleared, the humans stood among the ruins checking their weapons, helping Ovrians to their feet. One farmer, trembling, whispered to Holt, You saved us, but how do you fight like that? So recklessly? Holt shook his head. Not reckless, just different. Where we come from, hesitation means death. We learn to act fast, to trust our instincts. It may look wild, but every move has purpose. The Ovrians were silent. For them, war had always been slow and ceremonial, with careful strategies and honor codes. But the humans fought like storms, loud, unpredictable, and unstoppable. Arian, who had doubted them, could not help but admit, they are effective. But in his heart, another thought grew. They are terrifying. Uneasy admiration. That evening, the colony gathered in the central plaza. Humans and Ovrians stood side by side, sharing food and stories. Some humans played music on strange instruments, their songs raw but powerful. The Ovrians listened, fascinated by the emotions carried in every note. Children, curious and brave, gathered around the human soldiers, asking endless questions. Why were their teeth sharp? Why were their eyes so varied in color? Why did they carry so many scars? The soldiers answered with laughter, showing the children how to march or letting them touch their armor. For the first time since the invasion began, the colony felt a spark of hope. Yet not all were convinced. In the quiet of the Crystal Hall, some Ovrian elders spoke in hushed voices. These humans are not like us, one said. They are too harsh, too wild. If they can defeat the Grask, what else might they do? They are Deathworlders, another whispered. If they can survive their own world, what chance do we have to control them? But Governor Lyra looked out the window, watching humans and Ovrians laugh together in the plaza. We asked for help, she said softly, and though they are not what we expected, perhaps they are exactly what we need. A new understanding. That night, Arian walked alone near the human camp. He watched them sit around a fire eating simple food, sharing jokes as if tomorrow's battle did not worry them. One of the soldiers noticed him and waved him closer. It was Harper, the woman who had given a child her ration bar earlier. You look troubled, she said kindly. Arian hesitated. I do not understand you. You fight as if danger is nothing. You laugh when we would cry. You scare us, and yet you save us. Harper's expression softened. We scare ourselves sometimes too, she admitted. But you'll see. We're not here to conquer you. We're here because we know what it means to be weak, to be threatened. Back on Earth, everything tried to kill us, storms, beasts, sickness. We learned that the only way to survive is together. She tossed another piece of wood into the fire. Sparks rose into the night sky. Maybe that's why we came, Harper said. Not just to fight your enemies, but to show you how to fight them too. Arian felt a chill, not of fear but of realization. These humans were not gentle saviors. They were forged in hardship, shaped by a world that had forced them to become stronger than most could imagine. And perhaps, he thought, that was exactly why the Ovrians might survive. The night air over Saravel was calm, yet no one in the colony truly rested. The Grask Empire still circled above in their black warships, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Every shadow, every sound carried the weight of fear, but among the new arrivals, the humans, there was no fear. Instead, laughter, firelight, and the sound of voices carried across the colony's square. The Ovrians watched from a distance. To them, the humans seemed strange, almost reckless, as they ate, sang, and joked even though danger loomed above. The Ovrians could not understand such behavior. Arian, the reluctant scholar commander, stood with Governor Lyra, observing the scene. They act as if tomorrow will be safe, Arian whispered, as if the Grask are not waiting in orbit. Lyra's translucent features glowed softly in the starlight. Or perhaps they act this way because they know tomorrow is not safe. And so they live while they can. Arian fell silent. That thought disturbed him but also made him curious. Stories by the fire later that evening, the humans invited the Ovrians closer. A few brave colonists gathered around their fire, sitting carefully, their fragile bodies keeping a respectful distance from the rough soldiers. One soldier, a young man named Mason, began telling a story. "Back home," he said, "I grew up in a forest filled with wolves. Big predators, fast and clever. You couldn't walk alone at night without hearing them howling. We had to build fences, keep fires burning, and carry weapons if we wanted to survive." The Ovrians gasped softly. To them, the idea of living near predators was unthinkable. On Saravel, the few dangerous creatures had long been moved far from the colony. Another soldier, Harper, laughed. "That's nothing. On my world, we had storms so strong they tore buildings apart. Every year we rebuilt. We had no choice. Either you adapted or you died." The Ovrians shivered. Commander Reyes leaned forward, his eyes catching the firelight. "That is Earth, a death world. Poisonous plants, venomous creatures, endless storms, shifting lands. Every part of it tries to kill you. But we survived. Not just survived, we thrived." For a moment there was silence. The Ovrians struggled to imagine such a world. Their own home had been carefully cultivated, safe and stable. They had never faced such constant danger. Arian finally spoke. "You make it sound as though your world is a place no one should live. And yet you smile when you speak of it." Captain Holt nodded slowly. "Because it is home, and because it taught us what no council could ever teach. You fight, you adapt, or you perish. That is the way of Deathworlders." Fear and respect. After the fireside stories, the Ovrians returned to their quarters, whispering among themselves. "They are not like us," one said nervously. "They do not fear death as we do." "Perhaps that is why they are dangerous," another replied. "If they do not fear it, how can they be controlled?" Arian, however, thought differently. "Perhaps that is why they can save us. They fight because they know no other way." Governor Lyra listened quietly. Deep inside, she felt both fear and admiration. These humans unsettled her, yes, but they also brought something no one else had. Hope. The Grask strike again. 2 days later, the Grask attacked in force. This time they did not send a small raiding party. Instead, they landed several dropships full of soldiers, marching in tight formations toward the colony's central square. The Ovrian defenders readied their ceremonial weapons, but their hands shook. The Grask were too many, too strong. Then the humans stepped forward. Captain Holt raised his hand. "We hold them here. No retreat." The soldiers moved into position, setting up barriers and traps. They placed strange devices along the streets. Simple-looking things, wires and explosives tied to fuel cells. The Ovrian blinked in confusion. "What are those?" Arian asked. "Traps," Reyes answered. "The Grask think they are hunters. They'll find out what it's like to be the prey." The battle began with thunder. The Grask charged, weapons blazing, their armor shining in the sun's light. The Ovrians started to fall back, but Holt's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold your ground." The first trap exploded, sending fire and shrapnel into the Grask ranks. The invaders roared in anger, firing wildly. But the humans were already moving, using the smoke and debris as cover. They fought with a rhythm that looked like madness to the Ovrians, charging, retreating, ambushing, striking from unexpected angles. Every wall became a weapon, every street a killing ground. The Ovrians, watching from behind cover, were stunned. "This is not war," one elder whispered. "This is chaos," but chaos worked. Within an hour, the Grask retreated, leaving behind broken machines and fallen soldiers. The turning point after the battle, the Ovrians gathered again in the hall. Their voices were filled with disbelief. They defeated an entire company of Grask with only a handful of soldiers, Arian said. "Not only defeated them," Lyra added, "but drove them away in fear." One elder frowned. "But look at the cost. The humans destroy everything around them. They turn our fields into battlefields, our streets into traps. If they continue, there will be nothing left of Saravel to save." Holt, standing nearby, overheard. He did not deny it. "You're right. War is ugly. But if you want to survive, you must accept it. The Grask won't stop. They will burn your fields and take your people whether we fight or not. The difference is this: with us you have a chance." The Ovrians fell silent. Seeds of change that evening. Something unusual happened. A group of young Ovrians approached the human camp asking questions. "How do you fight like that?" one asked. "How do you stand without fear?" asked another. The humans looked at each other, then smiled. "You learn," Harper said. "You train, you fall, you get up again. Fear never goes away, you just stop letting it control you." Mason picked up a stick and drew shapes in the dirt. "We can teach you, not to be like us, but to be stronger than you are now, strong enough to survive." The Ovrians listened, wide-eyed. That night, for the first time, Ovrians trained beside humans. Their movements were clumsy, their hands too delicate for the heavy weapons. But they learned quickly, and in their eyes, a spark of something new appeared: determination. Shadows of the fleet high above Saravel, the Grask commander watched the failures below with growing rage. His fleet was larger than anything the humans could field. His soldiers were trained killers, yet somehow these strange new warriors had turned every battle into defeat. "Humans," he growled, spitting the word. "I have heard whispers of them, Deathworlders, but I did not believe. Now he believed. And he swore to crush them, no matter the cost." The lesson of the Deathworlders back in the colony. Arian walked once more with Holt. The human captain moved slowly, his face tired but steady. "I do not understand," Arian admitted. "You fight as if death does not matter. You laugh even when danger surrounds you. How is this possible?" Holt paused. He looked toward the horizon where the suns dipped low, painting the plains in gold and red. "Because on Earth, death is always close," he said quietly. "If we feared it every moment, we would never live. So we learn to carry fear with us but not let it rule us. That is the lesson of a death world. You may die tomorrow, but today, you fight, you laugh, you live." Arian stared at him, unsure whether to feel awe or dread. Perhaps it was both. A fragile alliance in the days that followed. The humans and Ovrians worked side by side. The Ovrians began building traps, learning to move in squads, learning to fight not just with honor, but with cunning. The humans, in turn, grew gentler with their allies. They taught patiently, encouraged clumsy efforts, and celebrated every small success. The colony was changing. The Ovrians, once fragile and fearful, were beginning to understand the strength of those who had answered their call. But above, the Grask fleet gathered in greater numbers. The true test had not yet come, and when it did, Saravel would stand or fall with the Deathworlders. The night sky above Saravel was filled with fire. The stars that once gave the Ovrian comfort now burned with the arrival of the Grask fleet. Their ships were massive, angular, and sharp like blades cutting through space. Each vessel carried the promise of destruction. The Ovrians had prepared themselves for despair. Their walls were thin, their weapons weak, and their soldiers few. Against such power they felt as helpless as leaves in a storm. But standing on the wall of the colony was Commander Hayes, a human with a scar across his jaw and a calm voice that cut through the fear. "They will come in numbers," he said, scanning the horizon with a soldier's eyes. "But numbers don't win wars. Willpower does." Beside him stood Elder Vera, leader of the Ovrians. She was trembling, her voice barely steady. "How can we stand against them? That fleet can burn our world to ash. Even the Council would hesitate to fight them openly." Hayes turned to her, his expression firm. "Then it's a good thing we're not the Council." The Grask threat. When the first wave came, the Ovrians hid in their shelters, believing the battle already lost. Their instincts had been shaped by generations of submission, not resistance. But the humans refused to hide. Sergeant Ramirez and his squad sprinted to the outer fields, planting charges beneath the soil. They did not wait for permission or debate strategy for hours. They acted quick and decisive. When Grask troop carriers descended, their landing was met with explosions that tore through their ranks. Smoke and fire filled the air, and the once confident soldiers of the Grask staggered in confusion. The Ovrians watched from the walls, wide-eyed. They had never seen a weaker force strike such a blow against a greater one. "This is only the beginning," Hayes said. His voice carried not just to his soldiers, but to the frightened Ovrians gathered behind him. "They think they can crush us by fear. Show them they are wrong." Teaching resistance. The humans did more than fight. They taught. In the training yards, Private Liu showed young Ovrians how to hold rifles steady. "Your hands shake because you believe you'll fail," he told them. "But the weapon doesn't care about fear. Grip it, breathe, and aim. The rest is practice." In the workshops, Corporal Diaz taught them to build traps. Doesn't matter if you don't have fancy weapons. You've got terrain, tools, and wit. That's enough to bleed an enemy. Even the youngest Ovrians learned new courage. Children watched the humans patch wounds, laugh after battles, and tell stories of Earth. Of forests filled with predators, of oceans that swallowed ships, of storms that could flatten cities. To the Ovrians, Earth sounded like a nightmare. To the humans, it was simply home. Slowly, the Ovrians began to see themselves not as prey, but as fighters. The enemy commander in orbit above Saravel, Commander Drazk of the Grask, scowled at his console. He had expected an easy victory. Saravel was supposed to fall within days, its people too weak to resist. Instead, his troops reported heavy casualties, traps, and strange new tactics that turned every advance into a struggle. Who leads them? Drazk demanded. An officer replied nervously. Not Ovrians, Commander. Outsiders. A Deathworld species called humans. The word Deathworld made even hardened Grask shift uncomfortably. Legends spoke of such species, creatures forged by hostile planets born into struggle. Few had ever survived to reach the stars. Those who did were always dangerous. Drazk's eyes narrowed. Then we will teach these humans their place. Bring the fleet closer. Burn their shelters. Break their spirit. The daring plan back on the surface, Hayes gathered his squad and Ovrian leaders around a holographic map. Red markers showed the Grask ships circling in orbit. We can't win by sitting here, Hayes said. If we wait, they'll crush us from above. We have to strike their command ship. Gasps filled the room. Elder Vera spoke first. Strike their ship? That is madness. We barely have weapons for defense, let alone for attacking a fleet. Hayes gave a small, grim smile. Madness is exactly what they won't expect. The plan was reckless, daring, and dangerous, just like the humans themselves. They would use stolen Grask shuttles, slip past enemy patrols, and sabotage the flagship from within. The odds were slim, but to the humans, slim odds were still worth fighting for. The infiltration. The night of the assault, 2 captured Grask shuttles lifted from Saravel's surface. Inside, human soldiers and Ovrian volunteers sat shoulder to shoulder, silent but determined. Sergeant Ramirez checked his rifle and muttered, "Feels like old times. Outnumbered, outgunned, out of our minds." Private Lou grinned faintly. Wouldn't want it any other way. For the Ovrians, every heartbeat was terror. But they took strength from the calm of their human allies. If Deathworlders could smile in the face of certain danger, then perhaps they too could endure. The shuttles slipped through enemy screens, landing inside the flagship's hangar. Before alarms could rise, the humans were already moving, fast, coordinated, unstoppable. Blaster fire echoed through steel corridors. The Ovrians followed, awkward at first but growing bolder with each step. The turning point. They reached the command deck in a storm of noise and fire. Drazk himself stood waiting, towering over them with armored guards. "You dare set foot on my ship?" he growled, his voice full of contempt. "You are insects." Commander Hayes stepped forward, rifle steady. "We're Deathworlders. We don't die easy." The fight that followed shook the deck. Humans and Ovrians fought side by side, pushing forward inch by inch. Traps planted along their retreat cut down enemy reinforcements. Courage spread like wildfire. Where once the Ovrians would have fled, now they pressed on with human resolve. Finally, Ramirez hurled an explosive charge into the ship's core systems. Sparks lit the command deck as alarms wailed. "Time to leave," Hayes ordered calmly. The humans and their allies raced back to the shuttles as the flagship shook with fire. By the time they escaped into space, the great vessel was burning, its fall sending waves of fear through the rest of the Grask fleet. Victory on the ground. When the flagship exploded in orbit, the skies of Saravel lit up brighter than any dawn. The remaining Grask ships broke formation, retreating in panic. Without their commander, they had no will to fight. From the colony walls, the Ovrians cheered. For the first time in generations, they had seen their enemy flee. Elder Vera stood beside Hayes, her voice thick with emotion. "You have given us what we thought impossible. You have shown us how to fight." Hayes shook his head. "No, you fought. We just reminded you what you're capable of." The new resolve in the days that followed, the Ovrians rebuilt their colony, but something inside them had changed. No longer were they a people of quiet submission. They had learned the strength of standing tall. of resisting even when the odds seemed hopeless. Children played at being human soldiers, shouting commands and building wooden traps in the fields. Young Ovrians trained with rifles, their hands steady where once they trembled. And the elders spoke of humans not as savages but as allies. The galaxy had expected the Ovrians to fall. Instead, they had risen, because Deathworlders had stood at their side. The first rays of Saravel's twin suns cut across the plains like golden swords. The colony was alive again. Smoke from battle had cleared, leaving behind the scorched remains of the Grask attacks. Yet life was returning, faster than anyone had dared hope. The Ovrians moved carefully among their homes, rebuilding structures, repairing walls, and tending the wounded. Their delicate hands, once unpracticed in labor and defense, now worked with determination and quiet pride. On the horizon, the humans patrolled the outskirts. Their armor bore scars from previous battles, but their expressions were calm. They walked as though danger was natural, almost a companion rather than a threat. Elder Vera watched them from a distance. "They are unlike anything we expected," she whispered to Arian. "Strange, terrifying, yet strong. They fight not for honor alone, but because survival is in their blood." Arian nodded slowly. "Yes, they are not like us, and yet, without them, we would have perished." A new perspective Captain Holt walked with his squad through the colony, inspecting fortifications and distributing supplies. Children ran past, curious, their eyes wide with awe as they saw soldiers carrying heavy weapons with ease. "Do they know what they are?" One young Ovrian asked softly to Mason. "Do they know how strong they are?" Mason crouched, resting his hands on his knees. "Maybe not, but they don't need to. Strength isn't always about knowing. Sometimes it's about doing and surviving." The Ovrian child tilted his head. "Surviving? On our world?" "Yes," Mason said with a grin. "If you learn to stand when everything is against you, nothing can break you." For the first time, the child felt a spark inside, a new understanding of what it meant to live boldly rather than just exist quietly. Teaching the ways of survival over the next days, the humans taught the Ovrians lessons that had nothing to do with honor codes or etiquette. They taught strategy, improvisation, and adaptability. Harper showed young soldiers how to read the terrain, how to notice small changes in the environment that might signal danger. "A shadow, a sound, a smell. Your world will tell you when trouble comes," she said. Private Liu demonstrated how to use simple weapons with precision. "It's not about strength," he explained. "It's about focus. Every shot counts." Even the elders joined in, learning how to repair machinery quickly, set traps, and defend without hesitation. They realized that survival required action, not just hope. By the end of the week, the colony had changed. Where fear had once dominated, confidence now grew. The Ovrians walked taller, spoke louder, and moved faster. The final threat high above Saravel, the remnants of the Grask fleet had gathered once more. Commander Drask had survived the destruction of his flagship. His pride burned hotter than any desire for conquest. He would return, he promised himself, and this time, he would annihilate the colony. The humans and Ovrians were aware of the incoming threat. For the first time, the Ovrians were not paralyzed by fear. They had seen the humans act, and they had acted themselves. "We fight together," Hayes said during a council of leaders. "Not because we're fearless. We fight because we refuse to surrender." Vera nodded. "Then let the Grask come. Saravel will not fall. Unity in battle." When the Grask descended, the skies erupted in chaos. The Ovrians and humans fought side by side. This time it was not only the humans carrying the Ovrians. They were equals in courage. Traps set around the city tore into Grask squads. Blaster fire echoed from streets lined with defenders. Small teams moved quickly, ambushing and flanking, forcing the enemy to retreat from every corner. The humans led daring assaults. But now, the Ovrians followed their example. Young soldiers ran across open fields under fire, using the lessons they had been taught. Elders helped with repairs and strategic placement, guiding others through the battle calmly and efficiently. The humans smiled faintly at each other, recognizing what they had always known. Even the most fragile species can become strong when given guidance and courage. Breaking the enemy, Commander Drask, furious and exhausted, called his remaining ships to focus on Saravel's center. But the humans had anticipated this. Using clever decoys, sabotage, and timing, they forced the Grask into confusion. Explosions in key areas caused panic while human squads attacked from unexpected angles. The Ovrians, once terrified of combat, moved with precision, assisting where needed, covering their allies' flanks. Dresk's forces began to crumble. Their soldiers fell back, retreating from traps, ambushes, and relentless human-led attacks. In the end, the Grask could not maintain order or discipline. Their morale broke completely. As the last Grask ship fled the atmosphere, the colony erupted in celebration. For the first time in memory, they had truly survived not just by luck, but by their own courage and newfound strength. Ovrians realized the truth in the quiet aftermath. The Ovrian gathered on the highest plateau, looking over the plains they had defended. Fields were scarred, buildings damaged, but they were alive. Arian turned to Vera. "We asked for help, and what we got were Deathworlders." Vera nodded, her eyes reflecting the burning remains of enemy machines in the distance. "At first I feared them. They were strange, frightening, uncontrolled. But now I see. Their strength is more than weapons. It is in their courage, their will to survive, their refusal to surrender." The Ovrians realized that these humans were not just fighters. They were teachers of resilience, forged by their own harsh world and now sharing that strength with others. Bonds of survival. The humans did not leave immediately. They helped rebuild homes, repaired broken machinery, and trained more Ovrians in defense and strategy. For the first time, the Ovrians felt a true bond with another species. The humans were not conquerors. They did not demand tribute or obedience. They fought because they understood what it meant to be vulnerable, to face impossible odds, and to rise despite them. Children followed the soldiers everywhere, mimicking their movements, practicing tactics, and listening to stories of Earth, a place that seemed like a nightmare, yet produced heroes. The Ovrians began to dream differently. They no longer imagined themselves as fragile and passive. They saw the possibility of strength, courage, and survival, even in the face of overwhelming danger. Recognition. Across the stars, news of Saravel's survival spread quickly through the galaxy. The Galactic Council and nearby civilizations whispered in astonishment. How could a small colony withstand the full wrath of the Grask Empire? And with the help of humans, those strange, unpredictable Deathworlders. Ships from distant worlds arrived cautiously, observing the humans and the Ovrians. Many were wary, but few could deny what they had accomplished. Humanity, forged by its own Deathworld, had become a force that could not be ignored. Farewell, but not goodbye. Eventually, the humans prepared to leave Saravel. Their mission was complete, but their presence had left an indelible mark. Captain Holt addressed the Ovrians in the central plaza. "We came because you asked for help, but you survived because you found the courage inside yourselves. Remember this, the galaxy is full of challenges. You have the strength to face them. Stand together, fight together, and you will endure." The Ovrians bowed, some wiping tears from their eyes. Children ran forward to hug their human teachers. For the first time, the words friend and ally had real meaning across species lines. A new era as the human ships lifted off and vanished into the stars. The Ovrians stood tall on their rebuilt walls. Their home was battered, but their hearts were stronger than ever. Arian turned to Vera. "We are no longer the same. We will not forget what we have learned." Vera smiled softly. "We have survived, and now we can thrive, thanks to those who came from a death world to stand with us." In the skies above, the suns rose fully, bathing the colony in warm light. For the first time in many cycles, the Ovrians felt not fear, but hope. They had asked for help. What they received were Deathworlders, and in the quiet strength of humanity, they had found a lesson for all time that courage, determination, and survival could forge heroes even from the most fragile of worlds. Saravel had been saved. The galaxy had learned something new, and the Ovrians would never forget the Deathworlders who had come when no one else would.